It's been about a week since I ran 28 miles at 5:30s and things have not exactly went to plan. So I thought today would be a great opportunity to talk you through how I deal with hiccups in training and what I've done to get myself back on track for the next 3 weeks of marathon training. So let's go back to Friday the 18th of October when I did my 28 mile run. Any of you who watched that video will know that it felt great. It was smooth and relaxed and I hit exactly the pace that I wanted to. It honestly didn't feel like it took that much out of me.
I feel like I can enjoy it at this pace.
And I was surprised with how easily I managed to handle the distance and recover off of that.
Oh yeah. Oh. Oh. Oh.
My training for the next 3 days was pretty uneventful. My hamstrings were a bit tight, which I mentioned a lot in that video. I didn't really do anything for them, I just kind of let them recover on their own, which I think is a good thing sometimes, and I felt completely fine. Like, this was nothing like how I would feel after a marathon. After a marathon I struggle to walk and I'll have like at least a few days off and at least a few weeks of just running easy. But on the Saturday after the 28 mile run, I doubled and went to the gym. The hamstrings eased over the next 3 days. I was only running easy but feeling good, and by Monday night they felt pretty much back to normal, and by Tuesday I was ready to session again. The session that I had planned for Tuesday was 2x3k, 3x2k, 4x1k with 3 minutes, 2 minutes and 90 seconds recovery. I hadn't been given any splits for this, but I generally know how things are supposed to feel, especially in a session like this. I've did it quite a few times in recent months, so I kind of know roughly what sort of pace I'm going for, roughly how the effort should feel, and yeah, it's meant to just progress as the reps get shorter. My first sign that something wasn't quite right came in the warm-up. I always do a 3-minute threshold before I start the session, and although I don't necessarily check the pace on this, I'm a pretty good judge of what pace I'm running. For some reason on this day I checked my watch at 400 meters and it was 84 seconds, which is not what I expected to see. I felt like I was running like 79, 80 seconds, which is quite a big difference over 400 meters. But I didn't think anything of it because sometimes you just don't feel that good in the warm-up, and how I feel in the warm-up generally doesn't really influence how I feel in the session. Sometimes I don't feel good in the warm-up, sometimes I feel great in the warm-up, and then the session's just completely different. So I didn't think anything of it, just finished my warm-up and got started with the session. And just like in the warm-up, I feel like I'm running the right pace, but I'm not at all. For reference, I ran this session a few weeks ago and my 3k reps were 9:09, so 3:03 through the k. I felt like I was running about this effort, this pace, but first k was 3:07, which is still fine, it's okay. I'm obviously just a little bit tired from the 45k, but I keep pushing, feel like I'm picking up a bit, and run 3:09 for the second k, before finishing up with a 3:11, which gave me 9:28 for 3k. Now this obviously isn't a complete disaster, and I wasn't ready to quite give up on the session just yet, but it's how I felt that was the issue. I felt like I was running like 9:10 sort of pace and effort, but it was 9:28. But yeah, it's the first rep. I just took my 3 minutes recovery and got back into the second rep. Tried to hit this second rep hard and progress a little bit at least. I felt like if I could run about 9:20, then the session would still be on for a decent day that got done. Ran 9:39 and it was like max effort. And 9:39 should not be max effort for me. That's pretty close to marathon pace, probably right around marathon pace. So yeah, I was done with the session in my head. I should not be running 9:39 3k and have my hands on my knees afterwards, but I did because this was really hard. So I finished that 9:39 3k, and once I finally had caught my breath and got my hands off my knees, I got my phone and I phoned my coach just to ask his advice and let him know what was happening. I definitely knew before I phoned him that I should not continue to do this session. I should stop, go home, recover. But I've only been working with my current coach for about 5 months, and this is the first time that I've ever had to pull the plug on a session. So I thought it was best to just let him know what was happening and find out what he wanted to do. And massive shock, he told me to stop the session, go home, recover and eat lots of food. So I did a short jog warm down, stopped at the shop, bought some recovery essentials, and spent the rest of the day and the next 2 days recovering. I went for baths, saunas, ate extra food, lay in bed at every given opportunity, and gave myself the best chance at nailing the Friday session, which was meant to be a big marathon session, but actually at some point later in the week my coach suggested that I should just try and do the Tuesday session again. So 2x3k, 3x2k, 4x1k on the Friday, which would give me a lot more recovery time between the 28-mile run and my next big marathon session. I did run in the 2 days that followed my failed Tuesday session and didn't actually reduce the mileage at all. I just ran them extra easy. I do my easy runs pretty easy anyway, but I just even held back a level on that, made sure that I'm recovering, and I knew that I'd called the Tuesday session early enough that it wouldn't have taken too much out of me. So it's Friday, we are back and ready to hit the session again, and it went pretty well actually. I ran 8:59 for my first 3k, which I just could not have done on Tuesday. I think if I was racing a 3k on Tuesday, I don't think I would have ran sub 9, so I was obviously feeling a lot better. It was still pretty hard. The second rep was 8:58 and I was definitely working, but there's a big difference between working at marathon pace and working close to 10k pace. Like, this is the most important thing here. This is the thing to take away from this video, is you have to know where your effort should be for a certain pace, and if that's massively different one day for no apparent reason, then just don't do the session. Just go home and do it another day. I'm not telling you to stop every time training gets hard. That's not the message here. Running is really hard and training should be hard. If I'd went 9:15 for both of my 3Ks and I was working hard on Tuesday, I would have 100% finished that session. But there definitely comes a point where finishing a session is going to do you more harm than good, and you have to find where that is for you. And for me, that was 9:28 and 9:39 with my hands on my knees. Anyway, I finished up the session on Friday. It went pretty well. I actually think I pushed a little bit too hard in the first 3 reps. I ran both 3Ks and the first 2K into the wind, and kinda expected to turn around and feel great with the wind at my back, so just worked really hard in those first 3 reps. That's not really what happened. The whole session was just pretty hard. I didn't feel any better when I turned with the wind at my back, so I didn't progress the pace as much as I would have hoped to in the shorter reps, but I'm pretty sure that's just because I was a little bit ambitious in those first few reps, and the difference in 3 days is just massive. Like, I didn't expect to have my best session ever on Friday, but I still had a really good solid session, got it done, worked really hard, and got some good confidence back. I don't really have much else to say on this. I just thought it'd be a great video to make to let people know that things aren't always perfect. You see that 28-mile run and you think that all my training's like that, and it's just not. Some days I feel terrible. Some days I have to make hard decisions and just go home and lie in bed. I can absolutely assure you that missing one session when you're feeling rubbish is going to help you a lot more than it would hinder you. So be sensible, don't be too hard on yourself, and subscribe if you found this useful. Cheers.